I always say John's. Like it's not, as
No,
in
no,
plural.
It is John.
It
John.
is
John.
John's company.
Apostrophe S.
Oh, I thought it was just John Company.
No. John owns the company.
No. So the
But that's how you spell it out.
Yeah. So the
It's
reason
not that
why
John owns it, it's a bunch of Johns.
it
how
is. No, it is.
That's what I thought it was.
That's what it is. So basically, the company it was called the Company of John.
Yeah,
Because everyone was a John, someone. John
Right.
Smith, John of Kent.
So it was John.
Yeah.
Not John's company. It was John's.
No, John's company is in a company.
Yeah, of
where
John.
that contain multiple Johns.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. I didn't realize going to Mars would be so much freaking work. Okay. Shall we get into this one? All right.
Sounds good.
All right. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 61 of the Board Game Gateway podcast. My name is Nebra, and I'm your host for this evening's podcast. Am I surrounded?
They're everywhere.
Yeah, I'm surrounded by three lovely gentlemen. Apparently, starting with my left, we have Mr. Damien.
Hello.
Mr. Ralph.
Hey.
And across the table, we welcome back Mr. Joel.
Hello.
And if this is the first time that you're listening to the Board Game Gateway podcast, we are your entryway into the world of board gaming, tabletop gaming, and fun times. We are trying something a little bit different in terms of our microphones and stuff today, so you may notice a little bit of a quality shift, hopefully, where we've been trialing out a couple of new things. We even had a really long meeting last week. We did serious business, sort of stuff.
Ooh.
Yeah, so we did all that kind of stuff. So hopefully it makes a little bit of a difference for you. On to tonight's episode, this morning's episode, whenever you happen to be listening to this, we're going to be having a chat about our gateway game of the week this week, which is Dropolter, whatever. However, we'll come.
Poltergeist?
Yeah, we'll have a talk about the pronunciation when we get to that later in the podcast. We're also going to be having a chat about some of the games that we've had a chat that we've played this week, including and not limited to John's Company 2nd edition. We have Joel's game of
Kelp.
and we also have Damien's game of
Cloudspire.
I was expecting you to do that in complete AI voice, and Damien's game, Cloudspire.
That would be an improvement, wouldn't it?
If current energy levels are anything to go by, we'll see how that one goes.
I fully expect to be replaced by AI before the end of the episode.
You know what? I'm going to have to put a little robot face on top of your head on top of the video. Oh, God. Anyway, we're going to have a chat about those. And then our feature discussion for the week, we're going to be having a chat about what was the story that got you into gaming and why do you still continue to game? I think was a very profound question that was asked in our group chat. So we're going to get into those later today. But we're going to start with you, Mr. Joel, this week. We have a chat about your game of Kelp.
Yeah, so I just recently got a copy of Kelp. It's a Kickstarter. It's been running for a little while. Only just came out a month ago, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
It is a two-player asymmetry game where both players are either the shark or the octopus. And there's some very simple objectives for how they get to win. But it's two-player only. We're competing against each other and this little kelp forest. And you essentially have one of either two roles. So you're either the shark, and you're a very hungry shark, and you're trying to find this elusive octopus. Now, the shark doesn't get a lot of information, but they can move around quite quickly. And essentially what you're going to have is a small board in front of you with these 9 tiles. And you, on your side of the board, as the octopus, can see what is on those tiles. And one of them is the octopus. Whereas I have to find you and then come and eat you for lunch or dinner or whatever meal you would prefer.
So it's a bit of a hidden movement sort of game sort of thing.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. So it's a bit of like a cat and mouse kind of chase game. You have all the information and all the power, whereas I'm quite fast and sleek, and I will come and try and find you as you try and evade your way around. As the octopus, you have 2 ways to win. You can outlast me. If I've searched and tried to find you too many times and I can't get there, then you will win. But you also have your own little sea floor cavern snacks like snails and crabs and that sort of thing. And if you can eat those along the way, you could get your own victory a bit quicker. But every time you do that, it kind of reveals your position to me. So it's a bit of a risk-reward kind of game.
That sounds pretty cool. Who do you think the target audience is for this type of game?
Ironically, I think it's sort of myself, couples sort of thing. It's a type of game that you need. I felt like you needed a lot of plays. As you played the game more and more, there's this sort of bluffing element that was going on. And I played 2 games as the shark to start off with. First game's a bit of a learning game. Second game, I was like, I really get the shark now. I understand what's going on. And my partner felt the same for the octopus. And then we switched sides, and all of a sudden, 33 games in, the whole game feels completely different now. I'm like, oh, I didn't realize that you were doing this, and like I just thought that was happening naturally, but you were actually making those decisions. I've now played 5 games, and I'm still learning. The game's still evolving. A lot of replayability. We haven't played any expansions yet. This is just the base game. And so I think anyone who's going to play with the same person repeatedly over time probably enjoy this type of game.
So you mentioned it's a hidden movement game, and I've played a couple hidden movement games before, but like, what is the movement mechanic? How do you move around? Do you just say, okay, like, is there a limited, you can only move one space in a particular direction, or is there like you roll some dice and then you move? How does the actual movement part work
What's
on
cool
that?
about it is that answer is different for both players.
Gotcha.
For the shark, you're sort of playing a probability game. So I will have a bag of dice that I will pull out from my little pool, and my bag of dice will evolve over the game. They'll get stronger and more powerful, and I'll get more abilities to mitigate any bad rolls and things like that. And essentially the game is you imagine like a tic-tac-toe grid. There is 9 squares. The shark will move on the lines of the tic-tac-toe board, and I will move around there and around the edge.
Okay.
Whereas the octopus is playing a deck building game on their side.
Right.
And they will move where you place the noughts and crosses. So they're on the areas in between the lines. So I'm sort of going to be moving in and out and around there, whereas they're going to be moving between the different areas. It's a little bit different for the octopus. As I said, they're going to have deck building. So they would have something like reveal a tile, but then you can switch to hidden tiles. So I won't know where the octopus has moved to.
Right. Or even if you actually moved an octopus.
Did you move the octopus at all, or was it a double bluff, right?
Right, okay.
And that kind of keeps evolving as the game goes on.
By the sounds of this, like, it's very pretty. It reminds me just off the premise of hidden movement, and it kind of reminds me of Fugitive, the card game.
That's
Yeah,
exactly
that's what I was thinking too. Yeah.
And it's also like with the asymmetric factions, it reminds me a bit of Root. And it's just, there's a lot going on here for such a small game.
Yeah, that was why I asked about the movement, because the dice threw me off. Because I was like, we're just looking at some images on BGG as well, and Ralph is entirely right. Like, the game looks absolutely beautiful.
It is an absolutely stunning, beautiful game.
Yeah, the artwork just looks incredible. But it was the cards that the row of cards, and knowing it's a hidden movement game, it immediately reminded me of Fugitive.
Yeah, okay.
But the reason why I wanted to ask about the movement was because I saw the dice on there, and it's like, okay, that looks like a really, really interesting change. This sounds really cool. I like I like hidden movement games, and most hidden movement games are asymmetric by nature.
With a bit of bluffing.
With a bit of bluffing, of course, yeah. But this sounds like it really leans into the asymmetry, because, you know, you've got one playing a dice game and the other one's playing basically a deck building game. That sounds really cool. That definitely sounds cool.
With that, was it difficult to learn?
No.
No.
Quite simple. Some really good player aids. It's a high quality production. So not only was the board and the pieces and everything quite easy to tell apart iconography wise and all that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Both players given their own player aid with the main steps that you need. The back of the player book has a slightly more in-depth player aid. It was very, very straightforward, kind of like we read the rule book as we started playing within about 20, 30 minutes.
Oh, that's pretty
good.
good.
Yeah.
So you mentioned in 2-player games, so how long does it sit in that 25 to 30 minute range? Are we talking longer?
So I would say anywhere between 15 to 60 minutes.
Okay.
And the reason is, how the game works is eventually the shark will find the octopus. That's the goal. And then it becomes this sort of rock, paper, scissors mechanic to end the game. You have 3 different ways that you can get away from me once I find you. Right. And I have 3 matching ways to counter that. So
I.e. a tic-tac-toe grid. You get it, guys? 3 matching ways. Do we all get it? Good, great. I'm sorry about that. I just had to throw that in there.
You're right.
Send Kelp.
And it's interesting because it's almost push your luck, but it's not. So there's only so many times I can search for you.
Right.
And if I want to go for you really, really early in the game, it's going to cost me later if I don't succeed.
Right, okay.
Or I could play a bit more methodical, wait until I know you're definitely there, and then get that sort of scissors, paper, rock match at the end.
Okay.
And it continues on. So the first time you have 3 evasive cards, and I have 3 blocks for that. If I happen to pick the matching card, I'll win. If I don't, we remove those cards, and now it's only a 50-50 chance that I'll get it next time.
Right.
And then the third time I find you, you can't escape.
Yeah, so I'm already more inclined to play that. So I typically am not the biggest fan of hidden movement games, only because I was burnt by Fury of Dracula.
Yeah.
It was still the longest. I'm not going to say it's the most boring game I've ever played, but it was very long.
It was close to the most boring game, is what he wants to say.
It's just basically the few games I've played of it, and I kept getting told, no, it's a really great game. You got to get into it. It's like I was into it 45 minutes ago when the game should have ended. Like, come on, let's go.
Yeah.
And whereas, so knowing that there's a really good quality hidden movement game, especially when it's pretty as that, and I keep coming back to that, but it's really appealing.
Yeah, I think you got my interest in it.
Yeah, that has that shorter gameplay span, because it immediately, for me anyway, and look, this is a big part of our podcast, is that we look for those games because it opens up the audience, because it increases the age span that you can introduce these sort of games to. That immediately means it's a game that I could put in front of my 12-year-old daughter, for instance, and I know she'd be keen to play.
Not just that, that's a whole
yeah.
like genre of board games, hidden movement, and there's so many great ones out there.
There are.
And this one doesn't seem like the most introductory one. Like it feels like there's easier ones
I would
out there.
definitely say if you haven't played a lot of board games before, it might not be your first one.
Yeah.
Possibly, if for people who are into board games,
Yeah.
you probably like this a little bit better.
But I will say, of the couple others that I have played, like Mind Management is probably my favorite one. But that is not one I'd put in front of kids. It's just, again, that has a lot of rules overhead because it has multiple asymmetric rolls.
My favorite one is Fugitive, as we have mentioned. I like that, but that can also be a bit obtuse in the first initial, like learning how the card play works versus, like understanding. Oh, what does it mean if I? What do you mean if I do that? But I agree. It looks great. It looks fantastic. It sounds like it fits in that nice light to mid-weight sort of game, which is good. Like, it doesn't overstay its welcome. So
It feels really good if you've played a couple of the really entry-level games and you want something that's a bit more interesting, but you don't want to go straight to Scythe or something.
And I will also say is that as far as hidden movement games go, it sounds like it fits if you have two people or a small group of people, they want to play a hidden movement game. But it'll sit better than a game like Spyfall, for instance, where Spyfall you need a larger group to really get the value out of it.
Oh, I've got such a
I
funny
think,
story about Spyfall.
I'd really enjoy, because I saw it has a little octopus miniature as well. I could see myself taking it out of the box and then just placing it randomly around the house on certain days.
Ironically, the octopus is one of the tiles. Because it was a Kickstarter, people really wanted an octopus miniature, but it actually isn't needed in the game at all. But they wanted it so badly that they backed just so that they could get it. And they made it there's a little coin that you get in the game, and it's like a little coin hoarder placement sort of thing. So it actually is ornamental as well.
I like to imagine that the game dev/publisher was like, fine, you want it? We'll give it to you. There you go. Have the damn octopus. All right. What? You just raised an extra $30,000? Oh, okay. Fine. You can have the octopus. We love you guys.
We'll give you two octopuses.
It absolutely smashed its goal, by the way. I think they, off the top of my head, don't quote me, but maybe 30 to 50 grand was the pledge, and it was like 1.2 mil.
Wow.
Oh, that's good.
So kelp is just a type of algae. Like, is that in the game at all? Like,
It's heavy on the theming of the game. It's this lovely green underwater kelp forest.
Right.
And as I said, this sort of circular grid. The corners are like this rocky underwater area. Then there's like slight seaweed, and then the middle is like a bare ocean floor. Definitely really heavy on the theme. You feel like you're kind of in the ocean.
yeah, you're treading water.
Yeah. It does feel like it could just as easily be like a bee theme, like it's a flower garden. A bee is traveling on the line. It's the same sort of thing, but
The art looks awesome. Like,
yeah, exactly right.
Like Scythe started with the art, and then they built the game off that.
Yeah.
So who knows?
Yeah, that's a good. All right. Anyway, so that was Kelp, a very good two-player asymmetric game. Make sure you go out and check that because it was now fulfilling. So you should be able to get it on should get it at the stores. No.
And it's worth saying that Kelp was designed by Carl Robinson and published by Wonderbrow Games.
There you go. Fantastic. All right, we are going to move on from a light two-player game into a heavy boy, into a heavy five-player game. We're going to have a quick chat about John's Company 2nd Edition.
I think it goes to, 7 players?
No, it goes to 6.
It goes to 6. Oh, God, that would be
7
ridiculous.
players. The 7th player is serving you drinks and feeding you because the game would go on for
We
that
need
long.
sustenance.
Now, we are not going to go into this one in depth on this podcast because we're actually going to do that on a separate episode itself because it is such a weird, unique, wonderful, heavy game that we thought we will dedicate an entire episode to it. But if you've never heard of John's Company, I'm going to hand it to Damo, and Damo can give you the quick overview and we'll jump in as well and give you an idea about what this game is. So we're going to say this is John's Company Second Edition.
Okay, so John's Company Second Edition is a game by Cole Worley and published by Whirligig Games. It was fulfilled a couple of years ago now, and essentially what it is a semi-cooperative game. And what makes that really interesting, and what all those words mean together is it means that the game requires cooperation across the table, but there can only be one winner in the end. So, and the game relies heavily on negotiation. So what that means is that you are working together.
Yep.
You are being really, really nice to each other.
To a point.
To a point, and then you just lie to each other, and then someone does something either unexpected or completely unexpected, and then attempts to run away with the game.
Yep. So the actual theme of the game, which is John's Company, which is we are all rich English families, and we are all running different parts of the East India Trading Company in the 1700s.
So
that pretty much just tells you the level of this game.
Yeah,
because
I'd
it's
say-
not the most exciting premise.
Yeah, so that's the theme of the game, is that we are each taking a unique family. In the version that we're playing, they're all they all have the same thing, but you take different roles in this company. So someone will be the chairman, someone will be the director of shipping, someone will be the manager of trading. You'll have 3 presidents of different areas of India, for example.
Someone controls the military.
Yes, and so before we keep going, we should also mention that the theme of this game does touch on some pretty heavy topics in regards to, the East India Trading Company and what they did in regards to how they,
ransacked India.
India, essentially, right?
And how the London Museum basically stole everything and holds everything that it has today because of that.
Like, to the point where in this game you can do, at one point, if you think it's better for you can open up trading with China, because you think that's how we're going to make money. And if you know anything about that, what you're actually trading with China is opium, right? So you're trading drugs, which basically started the opium epidemic over in China as well, right? So the theme of the game is pretty heavy, but once you get past the actual theme of the actual game becomes really weird, as Damo said, semi-cooperative, heavy negotiation game, because we all need the company to do well, because if the company does well, we make money. Now, Ralph's giving me the look because you may not want the company to do well.
We don't all need the company to go well, because in the game we played, you draft your starting positions, and Damien was very heavily situated to support the company. So I suggested, let's tank the company, because he's the only player that benefits from having a successful company.
So the game ends under one of 2 conditions. Either we make it through the 5 rounds or up to 8 rounds, depending on the scenario that we're playing, right? And so to give you an idea of how long this game went for, we did 5-player game. It took us 4 hours to play.
Yeah.
Right? So it was 4 hours, not including the teach. The teach was 45 minutes to an hour, but the game does a really good job of basically saying, I only need to do 15 minutes of rules upkeep, and then we can start playing the first round, and then you'll learn the game as the first round happens.
But I'll tell you what, I played a game of this and invited my wife to play the following game that we did a few months later. And I just gave her the basic premise of the game and go, look, you'll love it. Let's just play the game. I gave her a very rough teach, and we just dived in.
I will say, like, I almost certainly gave too much of a teach. Like, I probably dug in too much into certain areas. I mean, it's not a bad thing. It's just it probably wasn't necessary for the audience. We probably could have done with a 20-minute teach and then went in.
How many of those 5 were new players?
3. Myself, my cousin Matt, and my friend Hamish.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so Ralph and I know I've played this game 6 or 7 times now.
Yeah, I've probably played 4 or 5.
Yeah, because I know I think all but one we've played together.
Yeah.
So I've played this game a number of times, and for a game that takes anywhere between 3.5 to 5 hours to play, I think if you say I've played that 7 times, I'm going to say I've got a reasonable amount of experience with the game.
I think the playtime was pretty on par with what we normally experience.
The playtime was on
we
point.
We just added more rules to when we played with other groups.
Yeah, so, and look, and this is something we'll jump into in a deep dive, but just to expand on one thing that Nia was saying. So yes, you have different roles, but the company makes money by trading in India. That's one of the ways. It makes money by taxing the residents of India. And then you also have the premise of company money, office money, and then your own personal money. You
Yep.
can't embezzle directly from the company.
But there were ways.
There are ways for you to make money.
Can't
And
embezzle.
you can't. And so typically it's trading with other people.
So the way that you win this game, which is so I said that we're all families, right? And we're vying. You don't actually win the game by doing well in the company. The way that you win the game is that you need to do well enough, and then you need to retire. So someone in your family needs to retire from their position, either through a multiple of different ways. But once they retire, you need to have enough money in your personal bank account that you can send them to a fancy retirement village.
Yep.
And there are 5 different villages you can send them to, from Bogville to the castle, like basically the House of Windsor, right? Yeah. So the fancier retirement that you can get people, then that's how you get points. But before you can even retire, they've got to get a position of power. So that's either the chairman, the prime minister, the governor general. You can be, for example, a president, all these things. And once you've got your position, so we're working our way backwards. You need to retire. But to retire, you need to have a position of power. But to get a position of power, you either need to draft at the beginning of the game or put yourself in a position to be able to promote someone of your family through nepotism, or getting consent for nepotism, or by getting someone else to vote you into that position through deals and so on and so forth, right? So we've been talking about this game. So I want to give you, we'll give you a little, so look, without going too much more into the game, let's tell you some of the stories that happened from our game, right? So we had, for example, I started off the game as the Prime Minister. So at the end of every round, basically we pull out laws and we get to decide, okay.
We get to vote on new upcoming agendas.
And like things that'll change the game, for example. So one of the things that I did was on the second round of the game, we had one of the laws come out that said, hey, you know what? We're going to have a Governor General. And I went, that sounds cool. Let's do that. And Damo really didn't want me to really didn't want a Governor General on the board.
No. It wasn't that I didn't want Governor General. So I wanted one of the other laws, which was around.
Oh, that's right.
Which would benefit me more because I'd get more money.
Exactly right. So, but I said, you know what? I knew that would give Damien more. So he had a lot of shares invested in our company. So Damien really wanted this company to do well. Because if the company tanks, which is what I was saying before, which is the only way this game ends, which is you either get through all the rounds of the game, or the company goes bankrupt, which you can do very easily, right? And it's not unheard of for this company to go bankrupt in round 2 or 3 if you're like literally of this game, right? So I said, okay, we're going to vote for the Governor General, which meant that in the India game board, everyone can become a different president of those areas or governor of the regions, and they can become positions of power that you can then retire to. I said, stuff that, we're having one Governor General who looks after everything, right?
I thought that was really great.
And so it just meant that, so we now have a Governor General. And it turned out that our Governor General, every round, they didn't retire, they got fired because they were doing an absolute crap job. So Matt got fired, then I immediately brought in the Governor General, got fired instantly.
Ralph got fired.
Then Ralph came in and he got fired as well.
You know what's interesting as well? Like, we're diving into the game here a bit, but I funded that as chairman purely for selfish reasons. And I got fired, but then that last remaining $, Matt salvaged that for the company, which was just
it was
insane.
amazing. Like it really was. Like, and I will say, like the Governor General play was so much fun.
Oh, it was a lot of fun.
I purposely didn't say the Governor General can fund the company on its own because I wanted to let you guys work that out. And I'm glad.
That was fun.
I'm glad Matt worked that out.
Yeah, so the way that the Governor General works, which is that when we get to the Governor General's turn, he basically gets, for every region of the board that we control, they can just start rolling dice. And for every time that he rolls his dice, we can tax the people. And as we start taxing people, we just start taking money. Yeah. And at one point, we realized that the chairman has to fund specific roles. So Ralph funded only himself, and he realized, wait a minute, this means I could use the Governor General to try and embezzle this, because then if it's as closest to embezzling as you can to give myself.
I think it was just
money.
straight up embezzling.
Really leaning into the semi part.
Basically, to give himself money so that he could then do such a crap job that he immediately retires and then retire himself into a really fancy thing.
87% chance of success, and I failed.
And he failed. Yeah,
it was great. So good, right? He rolled 3 5s and a 6. It was brilliant. He needed 4s or below. So that's just one story from the game, but there's plenty of others.
I will say, like, just quickly, my favorite story came very, very early on. So like Nee said, he handed me the chairman card. I wasn't going to pass that on.
I didn't know what I got the chairman, but I chose the prime minister instead because I'm like, I don't know which one. I don't know if I should run this
And
company.
so and that combined with a couple other cards that I got just meant that I had the chairman and then I had 3 shares in the company.
And you're also the manager of shipping that thing at one point.
So essentially, I controlled trade. I controlled shares and trade. So after the first round, actually, even before the first round kicked off, Ralph told the table,
"We're taking this company immediately."
He says, "Damo's about to clean up. We need to tank the company
from the get-go."
And then I'm chatting with Matt, and I'm saying, "Hey, look, if you do this, we can do this delivery, and like we'll do this, and I'll make you some money. I'll make some money, so on and so forth." He's just gone, "Yep, that's amazing." Also, I was president of Bombay.
That's right.
So it meant that, and because I was manager of shipping, I put all the ships in the Bombay region. It meant that we could do a massive delivery.
Selfish delivery.
In Bombay. I think we made like 17 pounds.
It basically cut myself, Matt, and Hamish out of the deal.
No.
Hamish.
Matt was still in it.
Yeah.
Matt got £2 out of it. I got £4 out of it. The company then made a ton of money. It then came when the round ends. You basically can then
cash out the shares.
You can pay out the shares or the
distribute it.
dividends to the shareholders. Because I had 4 shares in the company.
You got like 8
And I had
bucks.
2.
I had more. I got more. I got 12 on that. So in one round, I made something like £16.
That's why
which
I
is
identified
obscene.
that early and really wanted to shut that down. But like, there's so many great stories that come out of it. Like, I did a move that really dicked me with the prime ministership.
Oh
and
my
everything.
god,
And
it was so frustrating.
it's just one of those games that really create those stories out of it.
Good moments.
So like, there's so many different mechanics and roles, but really it's a heavy negotiation game.
Yeah, like because the whole idea, like for example, just very quickly on what Ralph was talking about, the prime minister, which is the prime minister gets fired from his role, not retire, fired from his role if he can't pass the law. So you can't just pick any law of the 3 that come out on the board potentially. You have to go, I think if I do this, basically there was
have to try and get the majority of the
it's like I
table
pull
at
one on the
least.
table and Damo goes immediately, if you pick that one, I am immediately going no, and I'm going to fire you from that position.
Straight away, I just said, look, I've got the votes, and I will make sure you lose a prime ministership.
From what I hear, you got fired anyway.
No,
so.
but here's the thing. Fellow viewers, Damo was all talk. I picked that one, and I'm gonna put 3 yes votes to that. Are you gonna put any no votes? He goes, nah. It was all talk, right? But that's what the game is, right? We're gonna do a deep dive on this one because the game itself is huge, has a lot of thematic stuff goes about it, and it's worth talking about the game and actually showing it off proper. It's really.
I think that will make a great diary room game. As
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it would.
It's
Yeah.
such a huge game, and there's
Yeah.
people plotting behind your back a little bit as well.
Well, that's
So-
something we didn't do in this game. It
was all learning
This
game.
game was basically played above the table, but the way that Ralph and Damo said, which is that if you want to go to another room, have a chat about your plans, you really.
Yeah, you
You
definitely
can.
can.
Yeah, you can.
But we didn't, right? So that's why it's like, okay, we need to do this again and play it correctly. But at its core as well, like this is why we don't want to go into it too much more because it's all about negotiation. It literally
I
is
think
that
you can
whole.
talk for hours about this
Oh,
game.
you could,
100%
yeah.
Anyway, but it was super fun. I will admit. So Damo said to me, "It's going to be in your top 10 immediately." And after the game, I went, I don't know. If it's in my top 10. But then as I've let it sit for this past week,
definitely in mine.
I'm starting to
I
sit
think it
there.
was in mine
I'm
last
just sitting
week.
there going, it's pretty dang close. It's pretty
Yeah.
close. I need to. I have to have a look and see if it passes the vibe check. I think for my.
What do? You walk past the board game, you're like, ooh.
That's how I do my top 100. You do your ranking to figure out your thing, but then you have to see if it passes the vibe check. Like, do I really think that brass is better than pipeline?
The vibe is strong in brass.
Exactly.
Look at
Ooh,
that.
yeah.
Anyway, so we're gonna move on from that because we could talk about this for a lot
Yeah,
longer.
John's Company is a great game. It's one of those games that like really shapes a story out of the game.
Yeah.
And that's what makes a great board
What
game.
is Cole? Is he the designer of Root? No.
Yeah, so
He is.
basically, Cole Early also designed Root. He
Yeah,
also
that's-
designed Oath, but the difference is that, and he also designed Pax Premier.
That's right.
But the difference is that Pax Premier and John Company, the second edition of both games, are published by his publishing house,
Right, okay.
Whirligig Games, whereas
First ones.
Root, Oath, Arcs, yes, they're all designed by him, but they're published by
someone else.
Leader Games. So yeah.
That's right. Okay. Yeah. So look, if you like Root, if you like those kind of games.
But it's weird. I don't like I'm not a huge fan of Root, and Oath I found was interesting. But like, I love John's Company.
It's not the same as Root,
No,
but it's a
very
super
different
confrontation. If you're up for confrontation and negotiation, this is the game that you want to
I will say
Sounds
this.
like I should play.
Yeah. Like I'll say to anyone out there who's played Twilight Imperium, and if that is your sort of game, I would strongly recommend check out John's Company. The way I've sold John's Company to, I know, Ralph, to other people in our games group, is that I said it has all of my favorite things out of TI, but in a package that's 3 to 5 hours. Sorry, 3.5 to 5 hours long, as opposed to 10 plus.
Yeah.
And that so far that's how I would sell it. So any TI fans out there, and you haven't tried John's Company, I highly recommend it.
Perfect. All right, and with that, we are going to move on from John's Company 2nd edition, and we're going to move back to Damo, though, for our final game before we get to our Gateway Game of the Week. One that he's been getting back into, one that I guess you could say...
It's currently on GameFound, isn't it?
Yeah,
He's currently on GameFound, and it's kind of why I want to talk about it. Yeah. So, just quickly, Cloudspire is a
Cloudspire, that's the game.
Chip Theory Games game.
Did you say that again?
I know. Cloudspire
Chip
is
Theory
a
Games.
Chip Theory Games game. It is designed by Josh J. Carlson, Adam Carlson, and Josh Vilgas. I think if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, I
Come on,
apologize.
their company should be Josh Company. Come on.
It is, honestly, it's the Carlson brothers started it, so may as well. So Cloudspire was one of the earlier games by Chip Theory Games, and I've actually had the copy. I've had a copy of the base game sitting on my shelf for a little while. I was lucky enough to pick up a new copy relatively cheap in a trade, and I just never got it to the table. Essentially,
Damo, what is Cloudspire?
So Cloudspire is a MOBA adjacent game. So MOBA.
What is MOBA, Nate?
MOBA.
A massive online battle arena.
Thank you.
Is this online, David?
No, it's not.
Oh.
So it's a multiplayer online battle arena.
So it's
Yeah,
M-
I was going to say,
MBA.
I'm glad you can almost remember, because I couldn't remember what it stood for. But essentially, what's happening during the game is you will play anywhere from 1 to 4 players. So the game modes are solo, head-to-head, or 2 versus 2. And every player will take control of a faction. The faction has minions and heroes. So, and similar in MOBA style, what happens is your minions, they travel from your base, and their job is to try and get and defeat the enemy base.
That's the premise of the whole game, just defeat the opponent's
Pretty
base.
much, yeah. It's the premise of the whole
If
game.
you've never heard of a MOBA, you may have heard of games such as League of Legends, Dota, the new one, Deadlock, for example. All of those ones, those are MOBAs,
Yeah.
for example.
And the rules of the game and it are very not complex. They're a little convoluted, and that's actually one of the reasons why I found it really difficult to get the game onto the table initially.
It's more about the interactions that are complicated.
There's a lot of sort of like what happens in this scenario.
There's a
what
lot of
happens in
like,
this
there's
case.
that. There's also upgrade trees and
Yeah.
things like that.
However, once you get your head around that, the game is sensational, and I truly do mean that. So I know Ralph and we had a game a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
We're looking forward to having another game.
I'm really keen for it.
But I've been playing this mostly solo lately. And
so selfish.
I know. But the game is brilliant. So on your turn, so the game is made up of 3 rounds, and every round what happens is you get source to spend. Now, source is basically the currency in the game.
Tomato or barbecue. Ha, ha, ha. Sorry. I was
No mustard.
I was going to say, clearly it's chili.
Yeah, okay. Well, there's so many
It
sources.
depends on the faction you've
Yeah,
got.
it's the faction.
Okay.
But then you also have action points, which you can spend as well on units. So sources is what you use to purchase spires, to
can't unhear it.
upgrade. Yeah. But
I can see the correct.
Say,
I can see the.
mana.
I can see the. I can see the SOURCE
Yeah, I
spelling in
know.
my head, but my mind just refuses to and just thinks of.
I did not make the connection at all until you just said it. I was just like, we're just healing out catch up.
yeah, that's it. But like Ralph says, it effectively is mana. And that is the currency in the game. Using that to purchase spires that you can place out on the board. upgrade your base, so increase its defense, add additional abilities to the base, and that's one of the big things that every faction is asymmetric.
Yeah, and some factions have like crazy one-off abilities at their base. It's so cool.
Whereas one of my favorite factions, what you can actually do is one of the minion types is instead of it moving, you can use it to spawn different types of minions, and then depending on the upgrades that you had on your base, the minions that you can spawn can actually be more powerful than the base minion. And then you've got minions that have abilities whether they're near a certain spire and such. Now, I've spoken a bit about spires, spoken a bit about minions, and then the last thing that I mentioned earlier are heroes. So on any one of the 3 rounds, you can have one of your heroes out. There are heroes that you can then purchase from round to round. You can only have one hero out at a time. But heroes represent units that you have full control over them. They typically are extremely powerful. Some heroes have greater control over minions. Some heroes will buff minions. Some heroes are just absolute units on their own.
Is that right? You can only have one hero out of... I thought it was one per round.
No. You can only have one at a time.
Because I play a faction that like change that ruling, or
not that I know. Look, with the new content, maybe, but not that I know of. And then the last thing you have in the game is you have a market. The market allows you to change the layout of the board, so you can purchase board pieces and basically terraform. And the reason why that's important is because minions have to go down a particular path.
You can open lanes.
You can open up lanes, which is another very MOBA.
Basically, a MOBA map has 3 lanes.
You can close lanes too.
Oh, yeah. So a MOBA lane normally consists of 3 lanes: top, middle, bot. Has a river through the middle. Has a jungle area that you can go and kill monsters. And, you normally have a certain role that you do. So your heroes are generally ones that you are trying to kill minions to level up so you can get better spells.
So this was the same. Your hero levels up if you kill the opponent's minions.
Yes.
Yeah, so you want to kill minions because killing them gets you experience. That experience allows you to level up your hero to get more spells, attacks, buff, etc. You also then can use the money that you get from killing minions to buy more weapons.
And Cloudspire
spells,
is exactly the same.
and that's why it is essentially League of Legends Dota, the board game.
Yeah.
So if you love those sorts of games, this is probably... Look, we talk about gateway games, and this is a heavy game, but if you've never played a board game...
It's the same level of rules overhead as learning a Dota.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yes,
If you've never played a board game and you're thinking, they're just not for me, but I love League of Legends or something like that, this is literally the game that's like, come and play a board game version of it, except,
Just like without the real-time aspect.
Yeah, without the real-time aspect of it. But still have that complexity of knowing... I've got to know what faction you do because you have special abilities. Because positioning is still 100% still needs there.
In our game, I felt like I won that game because I realized how it worked mechanically was exactly like the video games that I've played growing up.
Yeah.
So I just adopted a bit of that strategy to it, and I ended up winning that game based off that.
Yeah, and basically... like a couple of little things in the game, and again, similar to MOBAs, you can use your hero to go exploring other areas. You can actually use minions to go exploring.
Power-ups on the map.
So there's some
Kill
power-ups.
jungle monsters, get different power-ups.
Exactly like that. So it very much has all of that as well. Now, the base box comes with 4 factions. It comes with 12 scenarios for solo mode, plus there's an event deck if you want to include that in your head-to-head.
There's a lot of scenarios.
There's a lot of content in the base box.
How many extra factions did you buy, Damo?
5.
Well,
Wow.
To be fair,
When you bought them, that was how many were available?
to be fair,
No, there's 7 available. It's just
to be fair, I'm not going to go on him too hard because he literally said in our chat, this is probably the best game that's new to me all year. This is literally one of his new favorite games.
Yeah,
and that's fair enough.
I won't talk about that too much. I'll save that for our top 10s and stuff. But I will say that Cloudspire is definitely a game that I regret not getting to the table earlier. You
were almost considering selling it.
I almost sold it. I almost sold it.
You nearly sold it to me at one point.
Because and then it was Ralph who said no, let's have a game before.
It's been on my list to play for a very long time.
And it definitely tickles that MOBA itch because I basically for me League of Legends the early community was great when I got into it.
I loved it too. When
And
I played it
then
when it first
and then
came
it
out
got
too.
super horrible and toxic. So much so that I was just a drop in and out player. I was never as good as some of the players there. And I think I got kicked off a server one time.
There you go.
It was fun for no reason, but hey,
Were you sitting on it?
no, unfortunately. But anyway, but look,
Zing.
it just meant that I fell out of love with the game.
That's fair enough.
But this definitely tickles the itch. So Cloudspire is brilliant. It's fantastic solo as well. So yeah.
I don't know if it's the best MOBA board game adaptation. I felt like it's a great game, but with the rules overhead, it felt a bit slow and clunky. But the more you play it, the better and more efficient you'll get at running the game.
Yes.
I have seen that there is a very big online community that actually plays this like online. Like there's a Discord server. I think they actually
Is it
play.
called Dota or?
No. It's the actual Cloudspire games. Like, I think
that would be quite good then.
Yeah.
I can say that.
And I will say for anyone who's intrigued, you can absolutely find this on the used marketplace and such.
Yep.
What I will say is that make sure you get the second printing. The second printing has the revised rules and the help. So like the player aids on the back of the book and stuff like that.
Oh, the player aids were really good.
The player aids are brilliant. The sort of like the round summary and like the general game summary on the back of the book that they've included.
It's very
now
easy to follow.
is
along.
really good. Yeah. It's just again the rules overhead comes in all the nuances. So we have this faction ability versus this faction ability. This is their position.
And even that character you described that summons other minions.
Yeah.
Like we played that a little wrong.
We
and
did,
We
yeah.
worked that out.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of working out on your first playthrough for sure.
But otherwise, it rewards multiple playthroughs. The game runs a lot smoother from like second game onwards. And it's super rewarding once you work out how to play it. Like how to play the factions well.
I have a sneaking suspicion this is not going to be the only time that we're going to be having a chat about Cloudspire this year. So
no, because there's you can upgrade your base, you upgrade your minions, your heroes.
And I forgot to mention the most important thing.
You upgrade.
Yeah, most important thing. It's waterproof. You can literally play this in your bathtub. I had to slip that in there.
It was a bit awkward when
Have
both
you?
of us were in your bathtub.
No.
Not yet.
Oh, we were. Yeah, it wasn't quite big enough,
No, it
but it's all
wasn't.
right.
We need a bigger bathtub.
We need a
I've
bigger
got a tub
bathtub.
in my place. You can come over.
Yeah, no worries.
Awesome.
We'll push them together.
All right, we've had a chat about a couple of heavy games, and now it's time for us to switch gears and get into our gateway game of the week. This week is this little lovely box that we have in front of you if you're watching on the YouTube channel www.youtube.com/@BGGateway. And this week our gateway game of the week is, you can hear all the jingling probably through the microphones at the moment, is Dropolter. Whatever. However, how are we pronouncing it? What's the official?
I call it Dropolter.
Dropolter. Okay, this is a game by
Dr. Dropolter.
This is a game by Oink Games, and this, if you've never heard of Oink Games, they are a specialist at making these very small games in a small box, but that contain normally kind of a theme or like a quirk or something really small.
And they're normally quick games.
Normally
too.
quick games as well, and this one is no exception. Dropolter is a game where it's a dexterity game where we are going to be given 5 of these different symbols, and as you can see here, they are literally a cube, a ring, a seashell, what looks like a little cracker, and a little blue like clover leaf. They're all wooden tokens, and the game is super simple. All we're going to do is you're going to put them in your hand, and you are going to hold on to them, and then what's going to happen is we're going to flip a card, and that card is then going to say what ones we need to drop out of our hand. So, for example, if it says, hey, you need to drop a ring, drop it out of the ring, grab the ghost, and if you're the first one to grab the ghost, fantastic, you get yourself a jingle bell. There it is. There it is, kind of there. So you get the jingle bell. Once you get the jingle bell, the first person to 5 jingle bells is the winner. But here's where the game gets tricky, and here's the little thing, which is some of them say you need to get rid of 1 thing out of your hand, up to 4 items coming out of your hand. So you could say, hey, get the cube, the ring, and the clover out of your hand. Do it right now, go. But if you drop any of the jingle balls that you have, that you picked up in those previous rounds, they immediately you lose them. You don't get that point anymore. So it's like, this game turns into, this is super easy. I can drop that one out, until all of a sudden it becomes, oh my God, why does the ball keep falling out of my hand?
I dropped me balls.
Exactly right. And that's the game. That literally is the game. Now, you can look at it, so you can open up your hand, and you can look at them, and then you go, all right, I can drop that one out, I can drop that. Or, Damo, apparently there's a chaos mode as well that you're saying?
There's a chaos mode or a hard mode where that is, you actually can't look at the pieces. You got to hold your hand upside down, and just feeling, you got to be able to drop out the pieces that you need. That is a ton of fun. It's frustrating at the same time as well, but
That's
is
the whole
pretty
game.
fun.
We've explained the whole game to you. I love it. I think this is Oink games do such a good thing with presentation, such a good job at presentation, and this one is all the tactility of just like the different plastics to like just the jingle bell. The fact that when you start getting in like 3, 4, 5 rounds in the game, everyone starts getting the bells. So all of a sudden it's like you have to start a round by saying, I'm going to have to shake your hands, guys. And all of a sudden everyone's hands just going, it's great.
I think you got to shake me on the way out because I might have some bells with me.
Yeah. All right. I mean, like more than normal, or
Yeah, more than normal.
More than normal. Okay, cool. Joel, what I want to know, what did you think of the game?
Well, I actually quite enjoyed it. It was a very quick setup.
Even though you cheated.
I wasn't aware that I was cheating.
He wasn't aware. Sorry, unintentional cheating.
I missed the part of the explanation where you can't use 2 hands.
Cheating is
by
cheating.
the end, I really didn't want to drop my balls, so I was grabbing one at a time and pulling them out, which I later found out you can't do after I'd already won. So
that's all right.
You take that.
We'll forgive you. That's fine. That's all good. What else?
In terms of like level of enjoyment to how much effort you had to put in, really, really well.
Yeah.
Like I think the explanation was a legitimate 20 seconds. And then we started a round, and I think the game was done 10 minutes later. I could definitely see it. Someone just gone to the bathroom. You want to quickly play this while we're waiting, because it's really quick and easy to get out. And yeah, I think I had surprisingly good level of fun just playing with these silly little toys.
It definitely is a pub game.
Like
100%. It is a sort of thing. Like I literally brought this to your house in my pocket.
Yeah.
Okay. And you could easily do the same thing. Take it to the pub and just few beers, play, and again, I played this on the weekend after a couple of wines. Full disclosure, it was the first drink I'd had in about a month, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe.
Why are you looking at me like I know this?
Because you're the one who said no more drinking, Dave.
I think you were the last. I think you were the last person I had a drink with, to be honest with you.
Probably.
And so basically, a couple of wines. Things get interesting around the table, and you just start to Google a bit too much, and you're literally dropping things. Look at these bells. Look, for me, in true Oink Games fashion, I'm a sucker for anything that has really great artwork, is really simple, really vibrant. All right, so going back to the artwork, really, really vibrant, but is simple and just gives you a laugh. I'm not going to say every Oink game has done that for me, but this is definitely one of them. And the only I think the only sad thing about this game is that it's difficult to get in Australia. I got lucky; there was like an Amazon Prime deal, and I managed to get it imported from the States at like basically at the same price that we'd normally pay for it in Australia.
I am scared to ask, but I want to know, how much is this game?
I got it for $33.
That's pretty good.
It's pretty good.
I know Oink games can be ridiculous.
Really expensive, yes.
Yeah.
Generally, it's just because Oink Games is based in Japan, and so I believe they're in Japan.
Yeah, they're in Japan.
So for us to get the games here in Australia, that's generally why they can be a bit expensive.
To get the games in English, so typically Oink Games, they're in Japanese or German in some cases. And so often the English ones come from the States.
Is there a rulebook to this game?
There is, yeah. It's just in the other box.
I will say this game though doesn't require any sort of like translation or anything other than the rulebook. But at its core, it literally is. It's also very accessible, friendly in terms of for color blindness as well, because all of the parts, it's basically based on feel, and the card has it has the color of the things, but more so every shape is completely unique and completely identifiable, so you can go, that's immediately the ring, or that's the cube. I know what I need.
Actually, that's a good question.
Oh, this is a cookie.
Oh, there we go.
That's what I said. It's like so I said a cracker.
Well,
it reminds you of a cracker.
Like the nice biscuits or whatever they're called.
Yeah,
maybe. Yeah. Okay, so maybe that is a question for our resident colorblind person. Did you have any issues reading the cards?
No,
I'm asking legitimately. I'm not saying that because I'm making fun of you for the first time ever, but yes.
No, you make fun of me regularly.
Regularly, yeah, but legit.
No, there's no issue with the colorblindness of this demo.
Awesome.
I think the ghost is really cute. It reminds me of like Casper the Friendly
Yeah,
Ghost or something like that.
Yeah,
I think that was awesome. Kind of a bit confused why the poltergeist theme behind this. Is it that like the poltergeist is stealing these random household items?
Maybe. It does make sense because like the jingling of the bells can be like, you know, when you hear the sound, you're like, what was that sound? Like, and it's like, oh, look, and you look around, it's like ghost attached to it. It's like, I don't know, but
yeah, that seems still a bit weird though. But
look,
it's like for me,
but it's cool. Like I like it.
The bells are the exact same bells that you find on cat collars. It just reminds me of my cat just going absolutely mental. That's what it sounds like to me.
Yes, it will drive the household pets quite crazy as well, I imagine.
Absolutely. Look, but this is certainly a game that I think that we wholeheartedly can recommend as our gateway game of the week. It is a lot of fun for the box that it is in. Again, we love games like Paku Paku, the games that we call stupid fun.
But I tell you what, there's not many games that give you sweaty hands.
Yeah, this one.
True.
It literally, at the end, you're just like, oh my God. And it sucks because nothing will slip out of your hand. You're like, get out of my damn hand. It's like stuck in there. So anyway,
you're a part of me now.
Exactly right. So we completely and wholeheartedly give this the big recommends, thumbs up. Yeah, it's all good. And, it was just a lot of fun. We were laughing and having a great time.
It's so funny when like you're trying to get that one item out of your hand to drop it to cash in on the points, and then you're dropping points you previously accumulated.
I felt like I was 1 point off winning in about 4 points of the game.
And then you flung a bell
across the table. I threw Casper across the room.
Yeah, that was under the table at some point.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's really funny because even though it's a dexterity game and you have to hold pieces in one hand, you'd think that basically having larger hands would give you an advantage.
It doesn't.
It doesn't, because I played this game on the weekend, and we had people at the table who had different sized hands and stuff. And it was the person who had the smallest hands who ended up winning. Even though they were complaining, I'm going to struggle to hold all these pieces in my hand.
Yeah.
But it just meant that they had a better feel for where the pieces were in their hands.
They could use their fingers more efficiently.
That's right, yeah. Whereas the person with the largest hands at the table really struggled to move the small pieces to parts of their palms and safely drop it.
I think it happened to you. Like I think it's intentionally designed as a ring, one of the pieces, so it traps the bells. Like it's pretty funny.
That's infuriating.
Yeah, absolutely, it is. Anyway, that was Dropolter, however you want to pronounce it, by Oink Games. We are going to now move on to our final part of our podcast, our discussion topic. And Joel, seeing as we've had you on for the second time, we thought it was. We've talked a lot before on this podcast, and people who've listened to it before will have heard us talk about our stories of how we got into the game. But we thought we'd want to ask you that same question. Let's ask you the question of, well, what was that got you into board gaming? But then we're going to follow that up with the question of why we still game. I think that's a very important question to have. So for our discussion topic, let's start with you. It's only your second time on the podcast, so let's start with what was why you got into board gaming, or what got you into board gaming? Is there a certain story that you remember, or a certain moment that you can remember from about board gaming?
So I didn't quite get into board gaming until I was probably a little bit older, like 2021. Officially, I would say I'm into board games. But growing up in our family, we really loved like quiz shows. And, like the Trivial Pursuit kind of games. We played like all the basic, like Monopoly, Cluedo, that sort of stuff. But we really like the games where you sort of read a question off. Things like the Logo quiz game, if you've ever played stuff like that.
Yeah.
That was really big for us. Just sort of like these little puzzle kind of games was really strong in our family. And then obviously moved out of home and that sort of thing. And then I think the first game that I got was a present, and it was Halo Risk.
Ooh.
And it was something that me and sort of my two best high school buddies, every time they came over, that was the game that we played. We didn't have any other games. So It was that, and we would play 4 or 5 runs of that in a night. Stay up to 2 a.m., what you do when you're young sort of thing. And then, when you're young. I
do that now, but it's not voluntary.
And then that was really cool. And then I sort of went on holidays. We went down to Melbourne for a while. They had a board game store, and that was super fascinating to me. They had a clerk in the shop. I said, look, I don't know what to get. What should I get? What do you recommend? And almost super typical gateway games. We got Splendor, Catan, and Carcassonne, and you were off, sort of thing. Wow. And it slowly evolved over. I think I've got about 80 games at the moment. It's not a massive amount, but quite a few.
That's all right.
And
that's pretty huge.
Some people at least hear you say, I've only got 80 games. So they go, 80 games. I didn't know that many existed.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's like, it depends on who you talk to. Some people are like, oh, 80, is that all? And it's almost like a little bit of a flex.
Yeah.
And then people who aren't into board games, you tell them they've got 80, and they're like, oh, what, 25 versions of Monopoly?
That's it. They don't know that 80 games exist, let alone
exactly.
that you
and then like they're all different.
100%. Well, that's awesome. That's great to hear. So, like, what was the first real moment though that you played a board game and that you went, oh, damn it, I want to find more of these games? Was there a moment that you can remember, like in those Risk games, or was it something like in, Splendor, Catan, or the Carcassonne ones that you're like, oh, so this is what board gaming can be, or something like that?
Yeah, I probably didn't realize it at the time, like epiphany moment, but playing Halo Risk was it was really good to see my friends. We get hours of time. There's no screens, there's no distractions. Everybody's immersed in the game. And we would just spend a lot of time commuting together and having fun, and it was just the three of us, and there's a lot of memories. I'd be able to quote 30 or 40 different game endings.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I remember the time, but remember when like I went for you and then he came in and saved me, and heaps of those memories. And that was really integral to probably why I asked, what other games can I get? And then we got Catan, we played some other stuff, and we just kept getting more and more of those experiences. I really just found to cherish those kind of moments with friends and family, and just everyone being present, and that sort of kept us around.
Love that, yeah. There's the moments I remember all the time. I can remember a game that we were playing of Anno 1800, me, Ralph, and our host, Blake. And I just remember one moment, like Blake literally at one point yelling out, light bulbs, what am I, Thomas Edison? Right? That was completely out of context, right? But we were in tears of laughter, just like watching his brain try to check on like how the hell does he get to light bulbs and things like that. But that brings us into our second part of this discussion topic, which is, why do we still game? And I think you started to touch on a really interesting point there, which is, like, you naturally said it, which was, I just got to spend time with my friends. I think that's why I keep coming back to it as well, because in a world where we are so engrossed by the digital screens, our internet, the phones, our computers, everything can be so digitized. It's so refreshing, I find, to put a game in front of us and force us to interact with this thing. Like, for example, our John's Company game that we did on the weekend, we made a whole afternoon out of it. We did, we got there at 3:00. We, each had to get some soft drinks and stuff. We were there talking, and then we started playing the game. And then at 6:00, we stopped and had dinner, and dinner for an hour and a half. And then we went, all right, we're all full of pulled pork. Great, let's go back to pilfering India, right? But like those kind of moments for me, I think, is one of the big things that makes me keep coming back.
Same for me. I have a similar story to yourself, Joel, where normal risk, I'm going to call it, was one of my introductory to board gaming. But I found it was the player interactions why I kept wanting to play it, as well as just having fun with the soundtrack during it as well. But I remember I walked past just a board game shop in the city, saw the Spartacus, which was a show I really liked. And I was like, all right, Spartacus the board game, don't know if it's good, I'll buy it. And then we finally got it to the table, played it wrong 60 times, but like, it was just so much fun, just that player interaction. And I found after that, I looked for more games that had player interaction, and then slowly dived into the more mechanical Euros and so on and so forth. And now, as you know, Clock Tower is my favorite game. So
absolutely, and like creating those memories, I just feel like is a big part of like who we are as people and how we enjoy life and that sort of thing. And I'm pretty big on seeing like friends and family and that sort of stuff. And there's lots of other activities to do, right? Like you could go bowling or go to the movies. If you're into sports, you could play golf. Maybe you play soccer with friends. But I found that, like, if you and me went to a movie, we sort of spend the whole 2 hours sitting next to each other, but not really talking. And then we might talk about the movie, and then we go home. And I didn't really learn too much about you, or we didn't interact a crazy amount.
It's the perfect first date, though.
Yeah, for sure. Because there's a moment. Yeah.
So long as you have dinner after the movie, because it's the perfect conversation piece for when you don't know what you want to talk about with that person. Go movie, then dinner, not dinner, then movie. What do you think of the movie,
you psychopath?
The other way around, absolutely. No, I 100% agree with you. And like as I said, so my very first, my first board gaming memory was probably back when I was like 7 years old, and it's a Monopoly memory, but it wasn't about the game. It was about my uncle. I just remember specifically every time that he would land on chance, or someone would land on chance, he'd make it like it was a game show. Like, tonight on Chances, Anthony is going to jail, right? I don't remember the game. I just remember that moment of him
when he put you in handcuffs, and escorted you to your bedroom.
Like, tonight on Chances, you go to jail. like go, like, land on go and to collect your money, right? Like those are the moments that I remember from, like, that's my first board gaming memory. But then that turned into my first. I remember just randomly when I was getting into Reddit back in 2011, 2012, just after uni, and then I'm like, and then the games, and I happened to be stumbling on the board game Reddit as Shut Up and Sit Down actually started doing their first ever review, which was Citadels at the time, and I remember that was the moment I went, oh crap, I really dig this game that they're talking about. I want to go and get it, and Citadels was my first purchase that I was like, okay, that's going to be, and I've moved on from that game at the moment, but that was the first moment. But again, the reason I liked Citadels was because it forced me to talk to you and actually go, what has Damien got? What has he got down there? Is that the assassin or is that the Duke? I don't know. Like, figure that out. And those are the moments that keep me coming back. Those
it's like a puzzle you're figuring out.
Yeah, exactly right. And but I always tend to think, like, maybe like for the cinephiles out there, like you brought up movies, right? For a cinephile, a really good movie, they'll think about a movie for a long time after that and how it affects them. Whereas I do the same thing for board games. I remember coming out of my first game at Twilight Imperium going, man, thinking about that for 3 or 4 days afterwards. Like,
not just that, you're like, if I played it differently, what would happen?
Absolutely. Like the theory crafting, all of that kind of stuff. And then, like, similar to yourself, like I started getting into other games for this can sound a bit blah, but like I do enjoy like the idea of actually using my brain for the mental exercise of some of those medium weight to heavy euros, of like calculating if I go here and do this route, that I'll get a blah blah. Like, it's so nerd, but like I enjoy that mental exercise.
It's a payoff because you put in the time to think about something during 100%. The game. End of the day, it means nothing, but like you actively did that thought and got an outcome for it, which is really awesome feeling. 100%.
Yeah, I think in my case, like my experiences are a little bit different. Like I will say on the TI front, and I was already back into playing board games more by the time I played TI. Came out of that game, Ralph will know, I said I never want to play that game ever again. And it's still to this day, it's not my favorite game. I play it because of the people there, but I don't play it for the game.
He'd rather play Eclipse.
I'd rather play Eclipse. I'd rather play John's Company. Anyway, doesn't matter. But I think the game that kind of, other than your Monopolies and your Risks of the world, which I did play growing up, chess, checkers, things like that. I played dominoes a lot. So in amongst sort of like Portuguese communities, the cards and dominoes are a big one. So playing basically Bishka or Briscola, it's the same game.
That was a good episode.
Yeah,
that talked about those.
Or playing Swacka, which is just spades. That's all it is. Or Casino. But I think formal board game, like the one that really got me back into the hobby after a bit of a hiatus, was Concordia. So Concordia had only recently come out. Shut Up and Sit Down did their review of it. And I saw it on sale. And I just thought, bugger it, I'm going to grab it. I'm going to give it a go. I said, I've never played a Euro before. I don't know what these are, but apparently these are supposed to be really, really great games. I think I had it set up on the dining table for the better part of 2 days, just playing it multi-handed, learning the game. And the game's not particularly difficult, but the first time you dive into a game like that, it just feels more difficult. Yeah. And absolutely loved it. I've played it with my son. I've played it with a bunch of other people.
You introduced it to me.
I introduced you, introduced to Ralph.
Have you played it, John?
I have not played it.
Oh, you got to introduce it to John now.
We'll do this. I will happily do that.
He loves to boast that he's got the teach down to 10 minutes.
Now. I have, yeah. At
10 minutes each.
At our first game day, I taught the game in 10 minutes. In
I'll time you, and then we'll revisit
in a single round, I taught the game.
I believe him because I remember when he taught it to us on TTS, Tabletop Simulator, and I'm sure it was like only 15. It was 15 minutes, but again, I give you the benefit of the doubt because we were on Tabletop Simulator. So
and there was 5 of us.
And there were 5 people.
That's
so. But look, Concordia is your sort of like trading in different places really, but anywhere from Rome to Europe to larger parts of the Roman Empire.
Sell good, get good. Sell good, get
pretty
good.
much, yeah. Like it's your typical economic Euro. But it also has sort of like this sort of route management element, and
I
there's
think
like
the
a
most
little bit
complicated
of
thing
area
is like
control.
the scoring element.
The scoring,
and how to explain that to new players.
Yeah.
That's the most complicated thing, really.
That is the most complicated thing, but it's got an interesting card mechanic, and I will talk about it more on an episode one day. But that was the game that really got me back into board game for a slightly different reason. Not because of the interaction. It's really funny. My favorite games are high interaction games these days. But because it was the first game that I had played in a long time that I wanted to show to other people, that I thought was worth teaching to other people, I thought was worth putting the time into. And I do remember that a little while afterwards, obviously we go into lockdown, I've had this game sitting on my shelf for a little while, and one of actually it was the first game I played on TTS was two random guys who I'm still mates with today, had a chat to them on Discord, and they said, "Do you want to play a game?" I said, "Absolutely." I had only just bought TTS, and they both said, "We've only played Concordia once. Do you want to play Concordia? It's one of our favorite games at the moment. Let's do it. Let's go."
Awesome.
Concordia was that game for me. That really kind of, like I said, it was the game that I wanted to show to other people, and really got me interested in the hobby more broadly. So,
I during lockdown as well, I just joined like TTS Club, which is a Discord for Tabletop
Yeah, I'm part
Simulator,
of it too,
and there's so many people there just posting, looking for any of these 6 games if anyone's interested. And the amount of times, pretty much every time I joined a random game with random people, it's always been a great experience and a lot of fun. You get to try new things, which is great. Like I played the new Quacks expansions that I don't own, and played a bunch of Nemesis online with randoms.
The Nemesis games we had were pretty epic.
Yeah, Nemesis on TTS works really well. There's certain games that work better on TTS than, like, I wouldn't say better, but like they work really well on Tabletop Simulator because you're not moving around a lot of pieces, and it's mostly just open discussions.
The automation in TTS is really good as well. Like the community has gotten really good at automating the setup, things like happening, events. Like it's really good there.
Yeah, exactly. And also good there's a lot of games like living card games that you can't buy everything for without breaking the bank. So a lot of people just sort of experience those type of games on there as well. So yeah, the online community for board games is like the next step up as well. Yeah, which is fantastic.
I will say, just more so to your second question, Nee, about what keeps bringing me back. These days, it's different to what it used to be. These days, it's more interaction. These days, it's about finding games that... finding the right game for different situations. Okay, so for instance, Dropolter is a sort of game that I would happily put out on the table while we're kind of in between making dinner and stuff. You know, I'd have sort of wife and the kids, and we'd play it quickly while something is simmering away, for instance. Perfect. Or having something like John's Company, where we organise it 2 weeks in advance. I think about what I'm going to cook for the day. I think about all those things because I can. It's that sort of game, and it's an event game. Or Concordia, which is the sort of game that I'd bring to like a MacArthur board gamers meetup, and I'd say, "Hey, we're playing Concordia." That's what keeps bringing me back to the hobby, because I'm a firm believer that there is a game for everyone.
Yep.
And there is a game for every situation.
So
Honestly,
you believe there's a game for every situation?
Every situation there is a game.
Honestly, that particular point about variety is a big reason why I still play it as well. We sort of touched on before, we've got all those other activities that we can do. But for board games, I can have people coming over who I know already a bit turned off, like, "Oh, we're going to play board games, are we?" I've got a game for you. Like, I've known you well enough, and I've known you for long enough that I think there's a game that would work, that would gateway for you, and then I've got the next game that would be best for you, and then the third, and you can sort of see that path to get them into the hobby. I have, like, we do a social night at ours where we play games. We might have a couple, like some friends, and then we have other people who are more alternative type of people, and then it doesn't matter what setting of people I tend to find that there's a game, no matter what it is.
Do you mind if I get a bit silly?
I'm going to say, have you tried Don't Get Got at a Funeral? You haven't lived until
Oh
you tried
my
Don't
God.
Get Got at a Funeral.
No, what I have. No.
Oh my god. Go for it. Get silly.
You're visiting someone on death row
Here we
in
go.
prison.
Yeah.
He's got 30 minutes to spend with you. What game are you bringing?
TI, and then telling the warden we're going to need a little bit more time here.
Twilight Struggle.
Yeah.
God, that's I don't.
Every situation.
Pass the bomb.
Pass the bomb.
Pass the bomb.
Yeah, that would be a good one.
Good.
Yeah, that's at the airport.
I will say specifically, Joel. I think, and Damo, to your credit as well. I am the big believer that humans, we start off as like we are creatures of play. That's how we learn. That's how we do it. I think a lot of the time that a lot of people have fallen out of love with board games because they only have known mass-produced games, which are not generally games.
They're
as
only
such.
like Twister and Guess Who.
Yeah, they don't provide agency for the gamers, and I think that for me, the reason why I keep coming back is the exact same reasons that you said, Damo. It's the interaction, it's learning, it's play, and it's one of the reasons why I jumped in to help run the board gamer community, the MacArthur board gamer community with you guys. But it's also the reason why we started this podcast, which is we talk about a lot of games, and some games have people going, would never have considered that a gateway game. And I'm a firm believer that any game can be the gateway game. It's just a matter of where those people are at. Like, I've taken my friends who are really big computer gamers who understand game mechanics, and I can throw them into a game of Dune Imperium, and they'd be able to get it. Whereas I'm probably not going to take my 90-year-old nan who's never played a game and throw her into that, which is why I come back to you, Damon, when you said Concordia, which is that Concordia is not hard, but you just didn't know how those game mechanics worked, and realistically, your mind doesn't know how those interact with each other at that particular point. Yeah. And I think we're going to start to wrap this one up here as we come close to the hour and 15 mark at the moment. I do think for me, and I think humans, we love, and like what you said, Joel, like the fact that people are like, I'm just not a gamer. I'm going to go, no, I think you are. You just haven't found the game. And like, it's that moment of like, you could just like put sushi, like Avery, for example, is a big example. He's a member of our community. He's been on they've been on our community,
our podcast.
Our podcast. And Avery,
deep dive of,
and Avery was on our on the Clock Tower deep dive for S&V. Avery was a Blood on the Clock Tower person through and through. And now Avery is,
they're buying heaps of board games.
Yeah, they come to our board game, and Avery basically just says, "I'm going to bring my trolley."
Yeah,
and brings all these games. Cool. And Avery was just a Blood on the Clock Tower person.
Yeah. You see us, you think we're going to the airport.
Exactly right.
And I think just to touch on one more massive point for it is accessibility.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other hobbies where I've got friends that play golf. You want to get into golf, it's probably going to cost you $2-3 grand for the first year.
At least.
Just for clubs and membership, all that sort of stuff. Whereas board games, I spent $60 on a game 8 years ago. I've played it 100 times. It's cost none of my friends anything. Even if you don't...
Yeah, cost per play.
Even if you don't... Right.
Cost per hour, I like to go by.
Yeah, sure.
Please, Twilight Imperium purchases, please.
At the fortnightly meetups, we have people who it doesn't cost anything to get in. There's no entry, maybe be a membership at the club to get in $3 every year. But outside of that, there's people who just show up every week and play for free, and they get a lot of community aspect. They make new friends. They get to try all these different games at almost no cost. It's for everyone.
We're going to introduce the membership soon.
The monthly subscription fee.
Yeah. It is easy to convince someone. Some hobbies you have, you're like, oh, trust me though, it's worth the investment. You don't have to invest anything for this.
No.
It's free. You can try it out. And if you don't like it, you probably haven't played the right game.
I think there's so many different board games out there. My collection is similar size to your own, Joel, but I do my research before I buy a game because these can be expensive depending on the game. So you want to make sure the game is right for you or something you're interested in. But most people that are gamers are happy to let you borrow a game or come over and try it out before you purchase it, especially online. And there's so many video content and other content that we're creating as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's really good. But the amount of people I've showed Happy Salmon to or Happy Salmon, that's just another introductory gateway board game. Yeah. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Taco Cat, Goat Cheese Pizza.
I think I've played over 1,000 games of Exploding Kittens.
Yeah. Essentially, it's just like Uno and Snap. If you know those, it's just weird variations, right?
Six Nimmt is the one in our family. The cards that I have now are fading.
But I feel like Six Nimmt is not it's not the next step up from Uno or anything like.
No,
it's not a traditional game.
It's just a different game. It's literally, it was introduced because the family kept wanting to play Uno. And I said, all right, let's play a different game. And they said, okay, let's play Casino. And I said, no, there's 6 of us here. Casino only goes to four players. And I said, look, I've got a game in my bag. I'll explain it to you. And there were 6 of us, and I think someone else ended up joining. And immediately we got, here goes a game, and it's going to take time to explain. I said, look, 2 minutes, and you'll have the game played. We played one round. They went, it's fun. We get it. By the time we all finished that first sort of So we played one hand, I should say. By the time that round was finished, people were hooked. That was it.
And the stigma's gone already,
That's
right?
it,
They're like,
yeah.
oh, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
next
I don't
time,
know.
you can go a little bit higher and they can accept that.
That's right.
It's kind of like a bit of a pet peeve of mine when people like just refuse to learn a new game or give something a chance.
Yeah.
Like it's hard to overcome that barrier with certain people.
I do feel that barrier is generally because people have learnt a game before and said, I've learnt games before and they've been absolute crap. Like I've sat down, I've learnt this 15-minute rule explanation of what I need to do and what we need to do, and then I've just not had fun. So why would I learn a new game when I know I'm not gonna have a good time? And this is what I mean. This is why we continue to play. I think the biggest one for me is to bring people into this hobby. But I am very aware that people aren't going to be into it as much as we are. But I do think, Joel,
But again, like you do your research, you wouldn't show someone a game that they're not gonna enjoy or find curious.
Absolutely.
I think that's a massive part of it. Like I have had players show me a game that they are truly enthused by. I didn't like it. Terraforming Mars is a really, really good example. Why? Because they needed an extra player.
Yeah.
But then I got absolutely creamed because I had no idea what was going on. And, fast forward 2 hours, or 2.5 hours in this case, didn't have a great time. And everyone's going, it was a really great game. And I'm going, no, because I didn't have the right introduction to the game.
Yeah.
Now, since then, I've played the game a few more times. I don't mind Terraforming Mars. I certainly like it more than what I did when it was first introduced to me. But I've got a feeling a large part of it is people just have a bad introduction to a game. And if they're not hobbyist board gamers, but let's say, again, using the Terraforming Mars example, because for a period up until now, it's a game you can pretty much get anywhere. They've gone, I've heard this game's really good. And they said, such and such knows how to play it. I'm going to get them to show me how to play it.
Yeah.
They then show them. Didn't go well. And they go, modern board games suck.
Yeah.
First impressions last.
Yeah.
Like, as humans, the first 30, 40 seconds you meet someone, it doesn't go away.
The other thing as well, very quick. I know I said we would be wrapping this one up soon, but this is a very interesting point, which is that me personally, on a personal anecdote, one of the things I start saying to people who aren't hobbyist board gamers and hobbyist board gamers alike is I say, if we are not having fun, you need to tell me because we are going to stop. And I feel like a lot of people feel like when I'm in the middle of a game, I'm not allowed to stop. I'm here until the end, whether or not that means someone wins and I'm having a crap time or whatnot.
That's
and
sunk cost.
I have literally said to my friends, they were playing a game of, what was it? We were playing...
Is it like the crypto or something like that?
I
don't know, that can be a
something
Rocky
similar.
Beach
It was either
times.
no. I remember we did it with Marvel Dagger. We did that specifically.
Yeah, that was rough.
We got through 2 rounds and we all went, "Are we not enjoying this?" And we went, "No, we're not really enjoying it." I go, "Do we just pack this up?" It's like, yes, we pack it up. And then there was another one with a couple of other friends where I could tell they were just not feeling it. And I'm like, guys, I'm gonna say this right now. Do you want to stop playing this? Because I can kind of tell that we're not enjoying it. And they're like, yes. And I went, fantastic, let's pack it up. And we packed it up and they went, thank you for that. Like, I didn't realize I went, guys, like, I'm here to have fun. If you're not having fun, I don't want to be in this.
Yeah.
And I feel like exactly what you said, which is that if people are not having fun, a lot of them feel like if I'm going to learn this game, I'm not going to have fun, and then I'm going to be the one who sits here. So, like, for me, I just want to make sure that people are having fun, and that's why I do it, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really good rule when introducing, like, smaller new games.
Yeah.
With Blood on the Clock Tower, I try to keep those new groups fairly tight. Like, there's 8 players, because if you are that person that draws a terrible character and you don't really know what you do or how to do it, you want that game to be over as soon as possible.
Exactly right. You want to be over.
I had a similar experience with like One Night Werewolf, Ultimate Werewolf, where if we have a new player, we sort of just take the villagers out for the first game. Because if you've played if it's your first game, and you get
So boring
no power,
as a villager.
once you've played a couple of games, you understand like why the villager is important and how it can work with the bluffing. But if it's your first game and you get villager and the game goes for 20 minutes, you are not having a
So
game.
the idea, I haven't really played it, but like, do you bluff as like a powerful role? So you need knowledge of that.
The werewolves don't really have any abilities. So being a villager, you don't have any abilities, and it kind of helps the werewolves bluff.
Oh, I see.
Of course, you're just a villager. Like that's what a
but
werewolf
you're
would
potentially
say.
a candidate to be the bad guy. Okay.
Look, we could keep talking about these stories all night. In fact, we have done on previous episodes of the podcast. So if you're interested to see more, make sure you go back and check some of our previous catalogue. We've got a lot of those episodes. But look, at its core, look, we're all here to have a good time and share that love with you, and that's why we do this podcast and everything like that. So All right, so I think we should start wrap this one up.
Yes.
All right, so if you enjoyed what you listened to, ladies and gentlemen, please make sure that you go and click the like and subscribe button on YouTube. Make sure you click share. Leave us a review on your podcasting app of choice. Also, check us out on all of our Facebook group and our Discord as well. We are starting to become a bit more active on those social media platforms as well. We'd love to see you there and be a part of that community. We will have a lot more. We've talked about there's more content coming towards the end of this year. We've got top 10s planned. We've got a whole bunch of other things planned that we have looked into. I would like to thank, first and foremost, Joel for joining us once again. Lovely to have you here, and we've enjoyed it. I'd also like to thank my two lovely co-hosts once again, Ralph and Damien, for joining us around the microphones.
You're very welcome.
Oh, thank you. I was wondering if you're going to leave me hanging there for a second because you raised them up.
I thought about it because I was going to say, damn right, but no, you're very welcome.
All right, and most of all,
you're welcome, Nick.
Thank you. There it is. I was wondering if it was going to do that. Most of all, thank you to you for listening, watching, and wherever you are for being part of this community. Until next time, on episode 62, we'll see you on the Board Game Gateway podcast. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.